Okay, geometry fans, our topic for today is equations of circles. And our objectives here after the lesson, our goal is to be able to use the equation of a circle to find the center and the radius, use the distance and midpoint formulas to find the center and the radius. So before we start, let me tell you your joke for the day. What do you call a shoe made out of a banana? And the answer is a slipper. Okay, so the equation of the circle is actually related to the distance formula. So at the top here, I'm going to write down the distance formula is the square root, and it's x sub 2 minus x sub 1 squared plus y sub 2 minus y sub 1 squared. And really, this is very similar to the Pythagorean theorem. That's like your a squared plus your b squared, and then when you take the square root of that, what that gives you is c. So for the equation of a circle, now the way I've drawn this, it kind of looks like this is 0, 0 for the center, but let's assume that that could be any coordinate pair. So I'm going to call that I'm going to call it h comma k for the center. And then the point, the other endpoint of the radius, where it actually hits the circle, is, we'll call that x comma y. And so the definition of a circle, it's all the points that are equidistant from some point. So from the center here, if I travel anywhere on the circle, all these points have to be the same distance from the center. That's what it means to be a circle. So if I could somehow measure that distance, I could quantify the circle. I could describe it. So I'm going to do the distance formula. Instead of calling it d equals, I'll call it r equals for the radius. So r equals, and it's the square root. I'm going to subtract my x's. That's x minus h squared plus y minus k squared. Now what we'll do is we'll clean it up a little bit to get rid of the square root. Let's go ahead and square both sides of that equation. To undo a square, we square root, or to undo a square root, we square. So we get r squared equals, and this is x minus h, parentheses squared, plus y minus k, parentheses squared. And the last thing that we'll do is we'll actually put the r squared on the other side. So we'll get x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. This is the equation of a circle. H and k are the center, r is the radius. And again, it's kind of like a squared plus b squared is equal to c squared. So it's very similar to the Pythagorean theorem. We're just using it for a circle now. Okay, so beneath this, we've got the equation written down. This is the general, this is the standard form of the equation. So the center is h comma k. Now what you'll notice is inside it's minus h in the parentheses and it's minus k, but it is h and k for the coordinates of the center. It is the opposite of what you see inside parentheses. Now this is r squared and the r is your radius. So to give you a couple of examples here, okay, I'll put these on the side. Let's say the equation was x minus 2 squared plus y minus 3 squared equals 25. Now based on that, we already know the center, we already know the radius. The center is going to be positive 2 and positive 3. It's the opposite of what I see inside the parentheses. So positive 2, positive 3. Now 25 is not the radius, 25 is the radius squared. So I could say r squared is 25. To solve that, square root both sides, the radius is 5. So the center is 2 comma 3, the radius is 5. Alright, so let's take another example. I'm going to give you two more here. Let's say the equation was x plus 1 squared plus y minus 4 squared equals 9. All right, the center, now this is positive 1 in the parentheses, But when you write the equation, you got to think of it as subtraction. So it's kind of like x minus a negative 1. So that's why when I write down my center here, it's the opposite of 1. It's negative 1. And then this will be y subtract. That number is 4. So it's the opposite value of what you see in the parentheses, negative 1 comma 4. Now r squared is 9. We'll solve that by taking the square root of both sides. R is equal to 3. Center is negative 1, 4. Radius is 3. Let me give you one more example here. Let's say the equation was x plus 4 squared plus y squared equals 64. Now what you'll notice this time is that there's no parentheses here for the y. So you can think of it, that's like y minus 0 squared. So we don't write the minus 0, we just write y squared, but you can think of it that way. So the center would be negative 4, comma, 0. And then r squared is 64. That's the radius squared, so the radius is the square root of 64, which is 8. Okay, so these are the things that we can learn just from looking at the equation of a circle. So what I would like you to do here is take these next 4 problems, 1, 2, 3, 4, match the following equations to the letter containing the correct center and radius. So you've got 4 problems here, and you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 choices. Go ahead and match up the correct equation to the correct information. So what I would do is stop it here and go ahead and do this. All right, I'm going to talk through it though. For number 1, the center is 3 comma 2. Positive 3, positive 2. R squared is 25, so the square root of that is 5. Now try to match that up, and the best choice is F. You got to be careful on this just because a lot of the choices are very similar to each other, so I would write down the solution and then match it to the correct letter. X plus 1 squared plus y minus 4 squared is 16. The center would be negative 1, comma 4. R squared is 16, so the square root of 16 is 4. That's the radius. And that would be letter E. Negative 1 comma 4, radius is 4. So that is E. So I've used those two. Number 3, x squared plus, parentheses, y plus 4 squared equals 9. Now there's no number with the x, so we can put a 0 for that. It's like x minus 0, and then this will be minus 4. The square root of 9 is the radius, which is 3. So 0, negative 4, radius is 3. So that's D. And the last one here, center would be negative 6, positive 5. And the square root of 4 is 2, so the radius is 2. And that is choice B. So your answers are F, E, D, B. What you'll find with this is that after you do a few of these, it's kind of the same process over and over. You need to know the center, you need to know the radius. Now what happens here in 5, 6, and 7 is they say write the equation of the circle from the graph. So now they're going to give you the picture and they're going to ask for the information to write the equation. Well, you need to know 2 things. You need to know the center, you need to know the radius. Well, the center for number 5, we got that. That's negative 1, comma 2. So on the side here, I'm going to write negative 1, comma 2. Now for the radius, what I'm going to do is I'm going to count from the center to the circle. I could count to the right, 1, 2, 3 spaces. I could count left, 1, 2, 3 spaces. And it's positive because I'm counting distance here. I go up, 1, 2, 3. Or I could go down, 1, 2, 3. The idea of the radius is that any radius is going to be the same in a circle, in the same circle. Okay, so they should be 3. So we got the center is negative 1, comma 2. The radius is 3. So we're going to write the equation. Now the equation it's x minus the h value, which is -1. So it's x minus -1 squared plus y minus k, which is 2, squared equals the radius squared. Now, minus a minus becomes a positive. So what happens is that if the coordinate for the center is -1, then in the equation it's the opposite. In the parentheses, this will be x plus 1 squared plus y minus 2 squared equals, and that's going to be 9. And there's the equation. That's a good answer right there. So let's take number 6. And again, I would recommend that you stop the tape, go ahead and do 6 and 7, then come back and see if our answers agree. The center for number 6, that's 3 comma -2. So the center, 3 comma -2. Now the radius, I'm going to count to the right, 1, 2 spaces. So the radius is 2. So I'm going to write the equation. It's x minus 3 squared plus, now this is going to be y minus -2. Minus and negative becomes a positive. So again, this connection that, okay, the center, the coordinates are the opposites of what you see inside. It's the opposite of the signs. Equals 2 squared, radius squared, which is 4. That's it. Number 7, the center is -2 comma 0. Be careful, whoops, be careful with this one. That's -2, 0, not 0, -2. We go left 2, and then we do not go up or down. The radius, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so it's all 4. R is 4. So we're going to do x. The coordinate is -2, so we're going to say plus 2 squared plus y minus 0, I'm just going to write it as y squared, equals 4 squared, which is 16. And that's it. That is the end of the front of the notes. Go ahead and flip it over and we'll do the back for part 2.